Shalom and hello everyone. This is Tom Thorne from Avdei El Elyon, Servants of the Most High God Ministries. And as a reference, this is August 16, 2020. During our last couple of classes, Hezekiah and David, Bathsheba, and Nathan, we've covered some pretty heavy and complex material. In the next 3 sessions, which are going to be a series, I want to be a bit lighter. In fact, I want to have some fun in these sessions. In fact, I want to share with everybody a Bible study that I have done several times with different congregations at various levels of biblical education. And I will say that almost every instance, almost all, from the advanced biblical student to the biblical rookie, has enjoyed this session. And I hope over the next 3 sessions to be able to present this so that you can give it yourself as a Bible study should you so desire. And please remember, at the end of each taping, I will share an email address for you if you have any questions or if you want any of this material to be sent to you. Okay? All right, so let's go. In giving this lesson, I have found that yes, most of it is review, but it's beneficial to put things together in a high-level outline type of structure. One other thing I try to do in giving this Bible study is to make it very interactive. I ask a lot of questions. Some of them are easy, some are not so easy. I do that purposely. So in giving this YouTube, if I ask a question, that is the way I would do it in a real life situation. So don't be surprised if I ask a question. You can just answer it to yourself or wait for our audience to answer it. Okay. Organization. Many people know the Bible well. Many people know the New Testament, the Berit Kadashah in Hebrew, very well. From my experience, I believe that a much smaller percentage of people who know and understand the Old Testament, the Tanakh, as well as the New Testament. One of the reasons for this is because the New Testament, the NT, covers a relatively short period of time of about how many? Of about 100 years, right. And the sequence of events is fairly easy to determine. For example, the first 4 books are mainly the stories of Yeshua's, Jesus' ministry. The next 22 books are generally the stories of the apostles, or messages to various congregations, people, or regions. And the last book is the historical/prophetic book of Revelation. Now in the Old Testament, the Tanakh, or the OT as I might call it too, on the other hand, is not as simple. It contains 39 books as opposed to 27 in the New Testament. It contains a historical time span of how many years? Thousands. And it was written over a period of how many years? About 1,000 years, exactly. About 1,000 or more years. So, the 39 books in the English Bibles that most of us use, they're not in chronological order either. They're not in chronological order at all. So that makes the Old Testament a little bit more difficult to understand. Chronology is important. Many of the happenings in the Old Testament depend on previous events. Putting things in time sequence is often a help to understanding, knowing what happened first, what happened second, what happened third. To our blessing, parts of the Bible have been preserved for almost 3,500 years. Now that in itself is amazing. So in this lesson, we want to examine 4 things. Number 1 is the organization of the Old Testament as it is in most English Bibles. Second is the word Tanakh. Third is the books of the Old Testament in chronological order. We're going to put the books of the Old Testament in chronological order, and we're going to do that together. And last, we want to have some fun with another separate organizational type topic. So once again, our goals in this series are fourfold. Number one is to look at the organization of the Old Testament as it is in most English Bibles. Number 2 is to examine the word Tanakh. Number 3 is to put the books of the Old Testament in chronological order, and fourth is to have some fun with another organizational topic. So first of all, I'd like to do a quick review of the order of the books in the English Bible Old Testament for almost all major translations, with the one exception being the complete Jewish Bible. When we open our Bibles, not the CJB, not the complete Jewish Bible, to the table of contents, we notice that the books of the Old Testament are in this order. Now, let me go through them real quickly. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. That's a grouping. Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, which is also called Song of Songs, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Now, have you ever wondered why the books are organized as they are, why they're listed in the organization that they are? It definitely is not in chronological order. As Job, one of the oldest books of the Bible, oldest books in occurrence, is listed toward the middle, whereas Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther, two of the books with the most recent of occurrences, are also near the middle. Now, when I've given this class before to many people, a lot of times I ask this question: why do you think they're organized in this fashion? And the obvious answer that most people has, well, that's probably the order they happened in. Well, that's not necessarily correct. Now, there is some sense in this organization of the Bible, though, of the English Bible Old Testament, though. The books in the English Bible Old Testament are grouped into 5 sections. The first section is what is known as the Pentateuch. Now, that's the first 5 books: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Now, a note on this word Pentateuch. This word is formed by 2 Greek words. The first word, pente, P-E-N-T-E, which means 5, and the second word, tukos, which means books. So the word literally means 5 vessels, 5 containers, or 5-volume book. The second grouping in the English Bible Old Testament is the historical books. That's the books of Joshua through Esther. That's a total of 12 books. The third grouping is what is known as the poetic books. That's Job through the Song of Solomon, another 5 books. And then the last 2 sections are the major prophets, Isaiah through Daniel, 5 books, and the minor prophets, Hosea through Malachi, 12 more books. So we have 5 plus 12 plus 5 plus 5 plus 12, a total of 39 books in the English Bible Old Testament. Now, the one exception to the rule here is the Book of Lamentations, which is included as a part of the major prophets, and it comes between Jeremiah and Ezekiel. Lamentations is definitely not not a major prophet in the true sense of the word. It has only 5 chapters, and it's definitely a poetic, if not the most poetic book in the Bible. In fact, the Book of Lamentations consists of 5 distinct poems. The 5 chapters are 5 distinct poems. Now, the first four poems are written as acrostics. And who can tell me what an acrostic is? Does anybody know what an acrostic is? Okay, go ahead, Amy.
The first verse starts with the first letter of the alphabet. Second verse starts with the second verse of the alphabet.
So that's second letter of the alphabet, etc. Right. Right. The first verse of this acrostic would start with the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, or aleph-bet, which is Aleph. The second verse would start with the second letter, which is Bet, etc., all the way through the chapter. Now that leads me to another good question. Can anybody tell me how many verses there are in this book, in this chapter?
22?
22, exactly. Because why?
Because that's how many letters there are in the...
Right, exactly. That's right. That's how many letters there are in the alphabet, in the Hebrew alphabet. Right, 22. Exactly. Okay, now, the one funny exception to this is that in chapters 2 and chapter 4, the 16th and 17th letters, which are ayin and peh, are reversed in order. And likewise, in chapter 3, which has 66 verses, verses 46 through 48 and 49 through 51 are reversed also. So the third chapter in this book has 66 verses, so that each letter begins 3 consecutive verses, as 3 times 22 is 66. For example, the first 3 verses all begin with the Hebrew letter Aleph. The 4th through 6th verses all begin with the Hebrew letter Bet, etc., all the way down to the 64th through the 66th verses, which will begin with Tav. Okay, now, and then, so that's the first 4 chapters of Lamentations. The 5th chapter, which is once again is in Poetic format, Hebrew Poetic format, is not an acrostic, but it likewise has 22 verses. Now, once again, Hebrew poetic writing. Does anybody remember what Hebrew poetic writing consists of? It's a repetition of thoughts, like, I'm going to do this because of this. This is going to happen, and this is going to happen, but they're the same thing. That's a repetition of thoughts within the same verse. That's Hebrew poetic writing.
Kind of like Proverbs, too, because Proverbs has the positive and the negative.
Right, exactly, right. That's why Proverbs is called one of the poetic books. Right, exactly. Okay, it's not rhyming, not possibly rhyming, but not necessarily rhyming like we think of in English. Okay, now, why did Jeremiah write these poems in this form? Is a question that I don't know if we have a complete answer to or not. One thought that I had is that he may have been doing this to show his deep expression of lamentations after Judah's captivity, by going all the way from Aleph to Tav in sequential order, every letter of the alphabet. Kind of like us in America saying that something is all the way from A to Z. In other words, it's complete. His total, complete lamentations, the complete sorrow for Judah going into captivity, for Judah for the reasons they went into captivity, for doing the wrong things that they did. So that's a possibility. I don't know though. Okay, now I suspect the reason, now one more thing, Lamentations being placed among the major prophets. Why is that the case? Well, I suspect it's placed here among the major prophets because it was written by Jeremiah, right after the book of Jeremiah, and scholars who put these books into this order must not have wanted to break the theme of Jeremiah's writing/speaking. That's the only thing I can think of, just because it was written by Jeremiah after his major prophetic book of Jeremiah, and so they just must have wanted to put it there just not to break the theme of his speaking. Okay, so when we mention the term major prophets above, before we go on, we need to be sure we have a clear understanding between the term major prophets and minor prophets. The books grouped as major prophets, with the exception of Lamentations, of course, are generally larger books with more written content. For example, Isaiah has 66 chapters. Jeremiah has 51. Ezekiel has 48. Whereas the minor prophets are generally the shorter writings. Cases in point are Hosea, which has 12 chapters. Joel, which has 3. Obadiah, which has only 1 chapter. Smaller in length, but not lesser in importance. Now the question to that is, why is Daniel considered a major prophet, as it only has 12 chapters as well? Well, if you look at the chapters in Daniel, several of them are very long. That could be the reason. Several of the chapters are very long. And not to mention the the importance of the book of Daniel, which may be another reason why it is leads to be considered a major prophet. So, the English Bible is organized by grouping, regardless of when the books were written or when the events took place. Five divisions of the English Bible. The Pentateuch, the historical books, the poetic books, and the major and the minor prophets. Now, next we want to take a look at the Hebrew word Tanakh. Tanakh. What is meant by the word Tanakh? The Hebrew Bible contains the 39 books Christians recognize as the Old Testament, although they're not listed as 39 books in the Hebrew Bible. This is what the Hebrew people call the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible. In Hebrew, it is spelled Tav, reading from right to left, Tav with the Patak underneath it, Nun with the comets underneath it, and Kaf. Now, Tav, Nun, Kaf. Tav has the sound of a T in English. Nun sounds like an N, and Kaf sounds like a K. The three letters for the word Tanakh, the three Hebrew letters for the word Tanakh, can be thought of as abbreviations for the three types of writings the three types of writings that the Jewish sages divide the Hebrew Bible into, or the Old Testament into. Now, Tav stands for Torah. You can think of Tav as standing for Torah. This word designates the first 5 books of the Bible, and the word itself means direction, instruction, or law. And yes, I said it, law. That politically incorrect word, law. But there has to be a law. Okay, so Tav you can think of Tav, the letter Tav, standing for Torah, the first 5 books, the books of what they call the books of the law. The middle letter, Nun, stands for Nevi'im. Now, the words in Hebrew, this word in Hebrew means prophets. Prophets. Examples here include the major and the minor prophets. And the third letter, Kaf, represents Ketuvim, could represent Ketuvim. Now, this word means writings. Examples would be the Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job. So the Tanakh, the word Tanakh, represents the 3 divisions of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, as recognized by the Jewish sages. The law, directions, instructions, the prophets, and the writings. The law, the prophets, and the writings. The New Testament in Hebrew would be called the Berit Kadashah. Berit can refer to an agreement, an alliance, or a covenant, and Kadashah can mean to renew, restore, make new, or fresh. Okay, so the Tanakh, Tav, Nun, Kaf represents Torah, law, direction. Nun represents prophets, and Kaf represents Ketuvim, that's the writings. So those are the 3 divisions that the Hebrew sages used to divide the Hebrew Bible into. Okay, so now let's move on. Now, does anybody know how many books there are in the Hebrew Bible? How many books in the Hebrew Bible?
24.
24, right, 24. Now wait a minute. You thought I said 39 before, right? 39 in the English Bible, 24 in the Hebrew Bible. Now, I said it's the same writing, right? Yes, it is. Basically, yes. In the Hebrew Bible, let me explain this. In the Hebrew Bible, the Torah, the books of the Torah, consist of 5 books. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The books of the Nevi'im, the prophets, consist of Joshua, Judges, 1st and 2nd Samuel, although it's only called Samuel in the Hebrew Bible. It's called Samuel. It's only called 1 book in Samuel. Kings, which is only called 1 book. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the Book of the 12. What's known as the Book of the 12, and that's what's divided in the English Bible as the 12 minor prophets. So we have 8 books in the Nevi'im. So 5 in the Torah, 8 in the Nevi'im. And the Ketuvim consist of, does anybody know how many books are in the Ketuvim? Right, exactly, 11. Psalms, Proverbs, Job, Song of Solomon, Ruth, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, Esther, Daniel, Ezra, and Nehemiah are combined into one book called Ezra, and 1st and 2nd Chronicles are combined into one book called Chronicles. So what we have, yes.
Who made the determination that these books would be divided up for the English Bible?
That we're going to talk about a little later on.
Okay.
Okay, so let's do some math as a point of reconciliation. We have 39 books in the English Bible Old Testament. The Hebrew Bible has 5 books in the Torah. The Nevi'im has 8 books, to which we want add 1 for 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1 for 1st and 2nd Kings, and 11 for the minor prophets. So we have 8 plus 1 plus 1 plus 11 is 21. And the Ketuvim, the 3rd division in the Jewish Bible, Hebrew Bible, has 11 books, to which we add 1 for Ezra, Nehemiah, and 1 for 1st and 2nd Chronicles. So we have 11 plus 1 plus 1 is 13. So we have a total of 5 plus 21 plus 13 equals 39. So here we have the reconciliation between the number of books in the English Bible and the Hebrew Bible. So the same books are included. Now, the same number of books included in each the English Bible Old Testament and the Hebrew Bible. Now, what we want to do next is take a look at some of the names and their meanings of the books in the Hebrew Bible. I'm just going to go through a few here. The first book in the English Bible is in the middle column here, Genesis. Now in the Hebrew Bible, we see on the far left column that is called Bereshit. The second column is the Hebrew spelling of that word, Bereshit. And the fourth column tells what that word Bereshit means, in the beginning. So the English Bible, Genesis, is known as Bereshit in the Hebrew Bible. Bereshit means in the beginning, and that's from Genesis 1, verse 1. The second book in the English Bible is known as Exodus, and that is called Shemot in the Hebrew Bible, or meaning of that is names. The third book, Leviticus, is called Vayikra, and he called. The kara is the verb there that Vayikra comes from. Kara is the verb to call, and Vayih would be the prefix. The vav and the yod prefix are what and he called to that verbal paradigm. Okay, the fourth book is Numbers, and that's called Bamidbar in the Hebrew Bible, in the wilderness. And the fifth book, Deuteronomy, is called Devarim, which means words in Hebrew. Devar would be the root word, that would mean word, whereas Devarim would make it plural, words. Okay, then I'm just going to go through a couple more here, a couple more interesting ones. We have Ruth, which is called root, means friendship. Melakim is kings, from the Hebrew word melech. Melakim would be plural. So we have the same name for kings. And Hosea is from the Hebrew word Hoshea, and that would mean salvation. And two more here. Micah, from the Hebrew word Mikah, that would mean who is like God. And the last book in the English Bible is Malachi, would be from the Hebrew Malachi, which would mean my messenger, my minister, my servant. Okay, so now, after we've taken a couple detours, let's get back on track and back toward our goal of putting the Tanakh in chronological order. Now, one question I'm asked is, why do we want to do this? What's the benefit in doing this? I think there are at least four benefits in doing this. A major benefit in putting the Old Testament, the Tanakh, in chronological order is that it allows us to understand how events in the Bible fit in with secular history, whether it was the time of the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Medes, the Egyptians, whatever. It helps us to put it in that time frame for our own thinking. Number two, it helps us in understanding who the books were written to, and helps us with the understanding of how and why they were written. For example, if we pick up the Bible and open it to Ezra with the predetermination that the Old Testament was always associated with the Egyptian Empire, we're way off base. Ezra was written during the time of the Persian Empire, approximately 1,000 years after the time of Moses and the powerful Egyptian Empire. Number three, to have an overall timeline of things, have an overall timeline of the books, to put things in order. It's nice to have things in order. It's nice to know the order of things. And fourthly, it provides knowledge. It provides us with knowledge, which helps us with understanding and allows us to help new believers, those with questions, and even ourselves when we have questions. Provides knowledge. So I think, in my opinion, these are real benefits to knowing the chronology of the books of the Old Testament. Now you can probably think up more reasons yourself too, but these are just the reasons I had. Okay, so now let's move on. The outline that I will be using is based on Jewish and Christian tradition. Now, I know it may be argued by some that the dates I'm going to be throwing out may be off by a couple of years by some people's analysis, but regardless, this is going to provide us a good guideline. This is a good guideline. It may be off by a couple of years. I'm not saying not every number I'm throwing out is 100% perfect, but it's going to be a good guideline. As a reminder, the organization of the Old Testament is a great subject to teach in a Bible study. I've taught it several times, and it has always been educational and fun. If this is being taught in a group session, or even if you are just studying it for yourself, I want to make the following suggestions. First of all, when giving this in a group session, emphasize to the audience that this is to be done as the team. I'm not going to do this by myself. You're going to help me do this. We're going to all do this together. We have got to get everybody's participation in this. And if you find that you want to do this as a Bible study, email me at servantsotmhg@gmail.com, and I will be glad to email you back a copy of the charts that I'm referring to. My email, once again, is going to be provided at the end of the session. So to start this job, let's go to the blank charts. Let's go to the blank charts that I'll be showing. Okay, let's go to the blank charts. There we go. Okay, now if you're doing this with a group, make copies of these charts and pass them out to every member of the group. Make yourself a copy too, please. If you're doing it by yourself especially. Now, follow the guidelines I'm going to give you, and attempt to fill in the books of the Bible in time sequence, chronologically, not necessarily in the order that they are in the English Bible that you read. For example, on the first semi-blank sheet, there are a couple of books listed to help you get started. I'm going to just go over this high level here. Right under the book of Genesis is a blank box. Right under the book of Genesis is a blank box. That means that a book was written during the same general time frame. The book was written and occurrences were during the same general time frame or overlapping the book of Genesis. Now underneath Exodus is a book too. That shows us that there was a book that the occurrences were in the same time frame as the book of Exodus. Under the third book, there's another blank box. But you'll notice under the fourth book, there's not a blank box. So in other words, no book was written during the same time period as the fourth book on the horizontal line. And a hint, give you a hint right here. The fourth book here is not the book of Numbers. The fourth book and the timeline is not the book of Numbers. Now, looking on the chart some more, horizontally, the sixth book listed is 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel. Above and to the right of 1 Samuel, there are two boxes. One of these, on top of one of these two boxes is the word north. This means that two books were written primarily to the northern kingdom of Israel, the 10 tribes. And at the same general time frame as the book written after 1 Samuel. Now, if this is being done as a group, the leader may really want to familiarize himself with the blank and the completed charts before he presents it to the group. Now, what you want to do is you want to walk the team through the chart. Throw out hints along the way. Throw out hints from your completed chart that I'll demonstrate later, and don't make the hints too hard. If you make this too hard, it's not going to be fun. Make the hints easy so people can guess what books you're referring to if they don't know them. A lot of people don't know some of these books. A lot of these books will already be known. Some of them are hard though. Some of them may not be known. The times I have done this, it has been a great deal of fun, and I've received many comments on how much was learned. Now, the completed charts that we will work through, now by the time we can get completed with them, we're going to have additional tidbits of information, such as the author, the date written, sometimes the occurrences, sometimes the highlights about the books. They're all going to fit in a small box, so we're not going to have a whole lot, but it's going to be a high-level overview. Now, this is critical. It's completely fair and expected to use, for the leader, to use the completed charts as a guideline while you're teaching this subject. You don't have to, please, don't try to have this all memorized yourself. Unless you have a much better memory than me, that is. Have the charts in front of you and use them as you're teaching. Now, after everyone has gone through the task of completing these charts and taken feverish notes, pass out copies of the completed charts so that everyone has a nice, clean copy. Now, when you do that, you're going to get some grumbling. So people are going to say, why did you tell me you were going to do this beforehand? I wouldn't have to take all these notes. But you're probably going to get a lot of thank yous too. We retain more if we write it down. Remember, the goal of this exercise is to provide an outline of the Old Testament for people to learn some and to have some fun. So each of the boxes are going to be in this general format. We're going to have book title, author, date written / time period covered, and highlights. And if the book title and the author are the same, the name's only going to be listed once. I'm not going to list it twice. And just remember, all dates are BC. So before we get started, I want to make a couple of notes about Israel and Judah, a couple of general notes. The northern kingdom of Israel, the 10 tribes, was taken into captivity by the Assyrians over an approximate 8-year time period from about 728 to 720. The southern kingdom of Judah fell to the Babylonians in 3 stages: under King Jehoiakim in about 606, under King Jehoiachin in about 597, and under King Zedekiah in about 586. So the kingdom of Judah was taken into captivity from over about a 20-year period from 606 to 586. Now, for our purposes here, in putting the books of the Old Testament in chronological order, we're going to divide the Old Testament into 3 periods, into 3 sections. The first section is what we're going to call the foundation books, showing occurrences from the time of Adam to about 1050 BC. 1050 BC. The second section is what we're going to call the books of the Monarchy, covering the time span from approximately 1050 to 586. And the third section is what we're going to call the Post-Exilic books, covering a span of about 586 to 425. So we're going to break it up into three spans: foundation books, books of the Monarchy, and the Post-Exilic books. Okay, so this is where we're going to conclude part one in our study, the organization of the Old Testament. In part two, we're going to look at what I've called the foundation books and the books of the Monarchy, both the united and the divided monarchies of Israel. And then in part three, we're going to look at the Post-Exilic books and have an exciting conclusion on another organizational topic. Okay, so Yivarakah Yahweh, everyone. God bless you. Shavua Tov. Have a good week, and Shalom.